If there's one game that everyone was looking to for this generation to set the bar graphically and hopefully for driving simulations going forward, it's Forza MotorSport 5. And thankfully, we can tell you right now, it does exactly that. It's an absolutely incredible achievement from Turn 10 yet again.
Yeah, it's just ramping up sort of that next-gen dream, you know, 1080p at 60 frames per second. And
yeah, smooth as silk.
It just looks like unlike anything else, you know. Forza's always looked great. That's, you know, no one denying that. But really, don't think I've ever seen a racing game or any game, to be honest, look as pretty as Forza does. There's a couple of bits where you're just driving along like the streets of Prague and you'll come over a bridge and you just get the sun sort of blast down through your windshield and you're just like, man, this is nice.
Yeah. You mentioned Prague. That is definitely one of the highlight tracks of the game. The attention to detail in that city in particular is very good, and that runs right through the game. Big thing here is auto vista in every single car. So as you can see from this cockpit view, whatever car you're using, you get that superb level of detail right down to the stitching, the type of wheel, and then that sort of builds on top of the handling, the engine, the gearbox, and everything else that's genuine about these cars. It's all translated into the game and gives you a really authentic experience.
I think one thing I noticed just from the auto vista is like you get distracted, like looking around the car, like, oh, that looks nice, and then you crash. And you realize that the damage modeling is actually really good on the cars as well. Like, you just take like a little scrape, and you're like, oh, that didn't do much. And you look at the front, it's just completely mangled, and you're like, oh man, I just ruined this Lamborghini. I hope the game doesn't just charge me gazillion credits.
I think that's a really important thing we found playing this game, and we certainly found this passing the controller over to other people who maybe aren't as familiar with sim races as we might be, is that it's actually really kind of novice friendly in a way.
Yeah.
There's still plenty there that's going to excite hardcore Forza fans, but they've done a few little tweaks that just help ease people in, which is perfect for a launch game. One of the key things we found out speaking to Dan Greenawalt recently, and you can read that in an interview in the latest issue, is that they raised the camera in the cockpit view ever so slightly. We found the cockpit view to be one of the best we've ever experienced in a racing game. It's absolutely fantastic, and we never really felt the need to jump out into a third-person view or a car follow view like we might normally do for when we're trying to learn a game like this.
Yeah, totally. And you know, the other sort of big thing that actually works, which I think surprised me at least, was the impulse triggers. You know, the impulse triggers, it's a little addition to the controller. They've basically put these little rumble motors in there so you get feedback going straight through your fingers, and it actually teaches you to drive. So at the very start of the game, you get all the assists are on and everything. It basically will guide you around the track. So when you're accelerating too much into a corner, it will start to rumble just to tell you that you need to put the brake on a bit. Or if you're oversteering out, maybe ease off the brakes and drop the accelerator on. And that's fine, you know. It really does just help you get around the track for the first couple of times, 'cause that's the hardest. You don't have enough credits to buy cars or the cars you want, and it just does really ease you into this sim world, which can be quite unforgiving in, you know, previous iterations.
It does a really great job of kind of giving you lots of positive reinforcement all the way through the game, and particularly encouraging you to take on bigger and bigger challenges. One of the big things of Forza, probably the only real innovation in Forza 5, is Drivatar. And Drivatar is all about you creating almost like a digital version of yourself, a sort of an AI driver based on your driving style that gets uploaded to the cloud for other people to drive against, and you're driving, as long as you're connected online, against other people's Drivatars. So you get a much more erratic, much more genuine driving style, more aggressive, sometimes more defensive, not necessarily following the driving line, and it gives you a really, really interesting single player experience that you wouldn't usually find. And so one of the things they try and do constantly is just kind of pushing you to do more. Increase the driver difficulty, maybe if you switch off a couple of assists, and it encourages that through improving the percentage of credits you get back after a race. It also does it by not necessarily forcing you to finish first to get the best result. In fact, a lot of races you'll need to finish third to get a gold result and the maximum number of credits from that race. So that's a really interesting thing. It's asking you to be more competitive, push yourself a little bit harder, and that's actually really working.
Yeah, I think that's really cool just for Forza to do. I know that might turn a few people off, but I think we found here in the office, just again passing the controller around, is it seems to be really well received. It's not punishing you for being terrible, it's not rewarding you for being super amazing, it's just asking you to challenge yourself just that little bit more, and I think that's something that's going to be really engaging for people after this launch window.
Of the big Microsoft exclusives coming out on Xbox One for launch, it's 4 of them. Forza 5 for us, just overall quality is the best of the bunch. Whether or not you're a sim racer fan or not might define whether or not you fancy taking this one on, but even if you're not sure, we think this is the Forza for you.
Giving it a score of
9 out of 10.